Good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Hingham Municipal Light Plant Board on May 16th, 2023 at 7:30 a.m. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Is there anybody else other than the light plant who would like to record this meeting? Seeing none, we will just head to the first agenda item, which is we're going to talk about our erstwhile 4% opt-out program intended to fund the Green Energy Fund. So, Tom, did you want to report on this, or?
So yeah, so I asked Deirdre Lawrence to look at I actually asked her how we could implement it, how to implement it, and she came back that she didn't feel that an opt-out program would be legal. That if we were going to do something, we would have to do it as a opt-in program. It would have to be advertised for a specific use. So we would have to say, we intend to give people the option to contribute, and we could pick an amount or whatever that amount might be, and it would be used for a certain function. So it would be used to put solar on public buildings, that type of thing. She didn't feel that legally we could do it as an opt-out program and decide later exactly how we were going to use the funds.
How is it done with the investor-owned utilities? I don't think people have a choice of whether they want to opt in or opt out.
It's required by law. The Mass Save program is created by law. The state required the utilities to create, manage this program.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're required by law not to do that.
Yeah, under 164, I guess it doesn't. She feels that that's like I think she called it cramming. I don't have the email in front of me, but
I have the email. I'd rather not read the whole thing, but she was quite negative about the light plant using an opt-in rate for something. We're only allowed to use ratepayer funds for things that help us deliver electricity to the customer. And she felt like this was outside of the realm of things that we're allowed to use that for. But the opt-in, I know other light plants have opt-in programs where I'm not sure how they do it, but they say, well, you could pay a little bit more if you want to have green energy. You can say you have green energy. I've never been a fan of that approach because I feel like we're all in it together here, and we should approach that as a community and goal and do it as a community, as opposed to people who have more money opting to spend it on green energy. But we could have the opt-in program for a specific purpose. Now, Brianna back in March drafted a very nice policy that one could adopt about. We had said anyway that we wanted a policy for how this fund would be spent. Right now, what goes into the fund is the renewable energy credits that we sell. The funds for the renewable energy credits, and that's a considerable amount of money. It's more than $1 million a year. It's running more like, I think, 1.3 million maybe per year.
that, yeah.
So that, that's considerable money, that funds that we can use for this kinds of thing, and then we can offer customers to contribute to that as well, and then we can adopt a policy such as the one that Brianna drafted, explaining how it's going to be spent exactly, so that people have a good idea about that. So we can do that, I think. I'll just ask my colleagues for their response.
Is there any precedent with any other light plants doing this?
Like I said, I know that some light plants have a fund to contribute. No, it's not a
So-
fund. They pay more to get,
Green.
green electricity for themselves.
And I think some of them have a fund to buy RECs to cover the,
It's
There.
the opposite.
yeah.
That's right. They have people contributing money, so that, yes.
So Wellesley had a similar program.
Yes, and I'm not sure that they, I think it's evident that they didn't seek the advice of our particular attorney for that, or they would have gotten that advice, but I'm sure they have their own legal advice.
So would there be any ramifications if we didn't follow the
Only if
advice of our
someone,
attorney?
only if someone challenges it. If somebody who, I don't know who would feel like they wanted to challenge it, since you can simply opt out, but
Yeah, exactly. That's how you would challenge it.
Tyler, did you have your thinking?
I didn't realize I was on mute for a little while. I like the idea of continuing to use the RECs. I'm a little bit, the legal opinion, which I read a little while ago, definitely gave me a lot of pause. And made me think of if there are any other creative solutions for us to, whether we lobby the state legislature for some sort of ability for municipal utilities to participate in Mass Save. That's a little bit of a long shot, and how we would be incorporated in that at all. Or if there's some other mechanism that we can use to help support renewable energy and energy efficiency measures, and make what we want to do legal.
Again,
So, so I think that in general, the municipal light plants have been reluctant to ask the state to regulate them by declaring what that we shall participate in the Mass Save program. And then I think are you the Tom, are you the host?
Yeah. I'm trying
Could
to
you-
mute. I think,
Yeah.
okay, I think we're all set.
Okay. So where was I going with this? I
safe program.
yeah, I'm just still getting some of
An
the
echo.
system is feeding back right. So then on the other hand, the legislature has been reluctant to regulate munis because the whole principle is the local town gets to decide, as opposed to the state deciding how we should operate. But this looks like a thing we don't get to decide. Maybe we want to ask for the right to decide something like this. We are required by the state to participate in the Residential Conservation Services Program, which is a really old one, where we have to contribute 0.25% of revenue. Do I have that right, Tom? And kind of that's what's been funding our rebate program, I guess, in the past. So we are required to have such a program to that extent, but it's much more focused on energy conservation than it's not. It's going to be not. It's not. It doesn't include the idea of like funding for distributed energy resources. So, okay, so that's a long shot idea, is to ask for permission to do something like that. I mean, Mass Save isn't funding for distributed energy resources either. So it's kind of a new idea. We could set up an opt-in voluntary fund. I mean, I feel like our attorney wanted it to be seen as separate from a rate. It's not a rate. It's a voluntary fund that people may donate to. She thought that would pass muster. So we could set that up and then see about getting permission to do something a little more aggressive, I suppose. Does that make sense
Sure.
going forward? So then maybe what we can do is poor Brianna sent me that draft back in March, and I had not sent her any comments on it, but I have now reviewed it and have some thoughts, and I could make some suggestions. We'll take out the opt-out part and send it through Tom, and then maybe we could review at our next meeting a policy for how that fund would be used and adopt that fund. Already exists. It's this a place we already put the recs there. So, but we could adopt that policy for how it's used. And then, in order to get people to contribute, there would have to be some kind of publicity campaign. So we'll have to refer that to Brianna for her suggestions about that.
To be honest, I'm not comfortable with taking out the opt-out part, because I think that really will decrease the amount of participation. I think if we ask the question and we publicize it to give people the option to opt out, let them think about it and make their own decision. But for us to set a precedent within the industry in terms of the munis, I think it's a step in the negative direction, and I think we should follow Wellesley's lead. And if we do have it challenged and people are not happy with opting out, then at that time we make a board decision to change it to be an opt-in program.
I know we have got some feedback from customers, some emails. Ellen has got some emails from customers with concerns about an opt-out program of the 4%.
Well, it would be great if they could forward those emails to us, because that's kind of that's really feedback for the board for us to consider while we're thinking about. It's important for us to see.
And we also have the results of the survey coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Ellen, do you have those emails?
Yes, we kept all of them. There were multiple people that are definitely against this. So, the emails were coming in, I think mostly when they started to come in, but yeah, we have been receiving emails of people that are against it.
Okay.
So
If
where
you can forward them to
they're
the
not
board.
sending those emails to the board, are they? So, yeah, so definitely, Ellen, please, if you get feedback from customers or ratepayers about things the board are doing, please forward them so that we get that input into our decision-making process.
Yeah,
Okay.
they come into the customer service mailbox. So
They don't go to look for the board email, I suppose.
yeah,
That's what happens. And then the poor customer service people get it instead of the people who deserve it. That's us. Okay, thanks, Ellen. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So let's look at these emails. I'm going to propose we look at the customer feedback, wait for the survey to come in. We see what the survey results are about that. And I'll look at the proposed policy for how this fund would be spent, which we can adopt regardless of whether we go ahead with the opt-out rate portion. And I'm just going to say up front that I'm uncomfortable with getting legal advice and operating against legal advice. That's makes me anxious. So we can return to that after the survey is done and we have another conversation about this. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So that's what we'll do. We'll have another discussion later. Okay, the second item on the agenda this morning is board reorganization. We've had an election and I think for a lot of elected boards in town, it's customary to revisit the who has what elected role on the board after an election. And I forgot to put it on the agenda for the last meeting, which was the one right after the election. So we don't have to reorganize the board, but I think it is a good practice to ask ourselves after every election if we want to continue with the officers that we have, or if we want to have an election for a new chair, new vice chair, new secretary. So I'm just going to ask the board. I'm happy to continue, but I'm also happy to hand off the chair role if someone would like to do that. It is customary in some boards, like the 3-person boards, the select board changes chair by custom every year. And the person who serves as the chair is the person whose last year in their term it is. So I wouldn't mind establishing that custom, although once again, you have to have an election. It doesn't just happen. But in that case, this year it would be me, because this is the last year of my term coming up. So I guess my preference would be to establish that custom next year. So let me ask my colleagues what they think.
Yeah, I think that's a good policy. I would be in favor of that.
I'd be in favor of that as well. I not seeking a lot of change at the moment, so I'm happy with the way things are.
Okay, thank you for your vote of confidence, and thank you all for continuing to serve in the roles you have, and we will revisit it again in a year.
Do you need to do a motion?
No, I think that we would we would have a motion to make a change. So
Change,
somebody,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, things will continue, but I do think it's important that it be on the agenda every year so that we revisit it right after the election every year. So moving along, our next topic is the annual true up of the solar credit. And I know you've been trying to get to this for a while, but our agendas have been so jammed, we haven't been able to discuss it.
So we have, some customers, and there aren't a great deal of them, but there are some customers that run a credit on this for solar. And that credit continues to build. So every year, because we don't pay it back, they have a credit on their bill. So what we've proposing is that, given that prices do go up every year, that we, at some point during the year, we pay off the credit, so they go back to zero.
Thomas, has this been done before, or is this is a proposal?
This is a proposal.
A proposal.
Yeah.
And I understand we have about 100 solar customers. What proportion of that 100 customers are sort of net zeroing out on their kilowatt hours, and how many would actually get a credit, and what's the magnitude of the credit?
Steve, do you know what that is? I think most customers.
We have about 120 solar customers. I'm going to say probably 5 to 10%, maybe tops. And that 10% would be pushing the limit.
I mean, how much are people becoming generators, so to speak? I mean, are we talking thousands of dollars here, hundreds of dollars here?
It's not, it wouldn't be thousands.
Yeah, hundreds of dollars.
Some might be like a couple $100, maybe one would be 1,000. It's
So
really not much.
A month or two tops on their bill.
Yeah,
Right.
but they never, the customers we're talking about never go negative. They always have a credit. They build a credit.
So
Okay.
they are actually not ratepayers, they're generators.
Yeah, and I mean, I see other utilities basically say that, you lose it if you don't use it.
So I am not in favor of that because
Well,
they
I-
are, they're giving us, they're selling us their electricity to make a decision not to pay them for it. Doesn't seem like part of the deal.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, okay.
Where I'm driving at is I would like to see them use that electricity by adding more electrical devices to their properties. And I'm wondering if there's a way to drive that.
Oh. This I'm just gonna throw an example. If this could help out other projects in town in the future, if there's a system that goes on a building that doesn't have a lot of electric load, that they'll continue to have a credit and credit and credit without kind of having the benefit of a cash out at some point.
Right.
It's quite possible those are the same customers who are trying to minimize their energy use, which is also a goal.
So-
And telling them you have to use more energy or you'll lose the
Right.
energy you create doesn't quite jive for me.
Are these residential customers or commercial customers?
Residential.
They're all residential customers. Do we know if their heating systems are all electric?
I know one of them is. I know one's 100% electric.
And he's still, or they are still having a net balance to the positive at the end of the year.
Right. And he has a Tesla too.
That's awesome. How big is his system?
It's like almost 15 and a half.
15.5 kilowatts. He must have an awfully great exposure to the south. That's awesome.
Yeah, he does. He's one of
Yeah.
the first 20 customers we had. He added on a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, when these customers put the solar on their roof, we told them we would buy the electricity they didn't use.
Yeah.
And that's what we should do. And from my point of view, to be perfectly frank, I'm very much in support of this. Another thing that happens, which I will tell you from personal experience, is that if you have a credit on your bill and you sell your house, the previous policy of the light plant was you would lose that credit, which didn't feel good to me because I generated that electricity and I thought I was going to sell it to the light plant. So having the regular true up so that we don't get into that kind of situation for people who move makes sense to me. And to be honest, I feel like this is an operational decision, that this is really Tom's decision, but that I support it. And if Tom would like the board's support for that, I'm happy to offer it. Tyler, you haven't said anything.
Yeah, I'm in support of that. And I like the idea of, with any of these customers, presenting them the options of where they might be able to increase their energy efficiency via installing home batteries and other products to increase their use of electricity and decrease their use of other fossil fuels. But I think that that's where we probably have to stop, and that the true up plan is probably the best option.
Mike, is that what you meant by increasing their use of the electricity? Did you mean like installing batteries so they could use it at a different time? That wouldn't help them because they're.
I think there's two points that I'm in favor of. I would prefer to see the net metering being in terms of kilowatt hours and not necessarily a credit in terms of dollars. So personally, I would like to see a kilowatt hour item field on the bill that shows people with a positive in the spring and summer, and more than likely a negative in the winter. And then once a year or whenever the customer wants to look at their balance, they can see what percentage, some more statistics on the bill that show a complete profile of the energy that they're using from HMLP, they're using from their solar, and if they have a battery, how that comes into it. If and when we go to net metering, there will be an additional incentive for a customer to install a battery. I don't feel that we necessarily want to make a battery a necessary part of a solar system. That's a customer choice. It gives them different or a potential for increased resiliency, because they would have their own power source that would be available 24/7. But as we incent and we want people to move to heat pumps, the size of batteries really becomes probably too large certainly at current prices to cover somebody's heat load during a time when solar production is minimal. I think we're much better looking at larger batteries and distributed batteries in town to provide that backup. I am honestly in favor of a customer being able to net meter so that what they produce, they get the opportunity to use. And then at the end of the year, we could do a true up and basically equate those kilowatt hours that are banked to a dollar sum and cash it out to net it out. That's what I'm in favor of, because I cannot justify when I talk to people as a solar coach that they essentially lose between a time that they generate to a time that they consume. The PCA charge that we have on right now and the capacity and distribution cost, when it's clear that we're never going to be in a situation in town that we have enough solar that we're supplying the whole town. So essentially any solar that's generated in Hingham is used by a neighbor, and there's no extra charges other than the energy for that power. And that's my personal opinion. I know there's lots of models that show other ways, but that's my feeling. That's my feeling on it. But I'm certainly in favor of a true up. And if some customers are in a situation of generating more power than they use, then they should be compensated at market rates for that.
So we're definitely going to return to this discussion in the context of our rate discussion, all the issues that you just raised, Mike. In particular, I'm not sure what you mean by market rate. I mean, we don't, our solar credit is not is at wholesale market rate, not retail market rate. So but anyway, we will get to that
Right.
We don't need to cover that right now. Is there any objection to Tom going ahead and setting up a system where on a periodic basis, let's not even specify, decision of the general manager to periodically refund solar customers for electricity that they have sold to us, which they have not used to bring on a periodic rate to bring their balance to zero? Is that?
Yep, in favor.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely in favor.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to state the board's support for the administration periodically reimbursing solar generators who are running a balance of electricity they have sold to us that we have not paid for on a monthly basis, periodically refunding to them, paying them for the balance that they are running, bringing their bill to zero at the discretion of the general manager. Did I sum that up right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so moved.
Okay,
Second,
second, okay.
Could
Expect there's
could
no,
I just ask for
Yeah.
some additional feedback on?
Yeah.
As solar customers, when is a good time for?
Yeah.
We're thinking like doing it January 1st, but I'm not sure that's the
Okay.
best time.
first, let's take our vote. All in favor? Tyler,
aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Laura, aye.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a good question, Tom, and that's one that I would ask. My gut tells me you want to do it at the end of the summer, when people have potentially banked the most of their production. You could look at when somebody becomes sort of net zero between what they're using and what they're producing. I'm happy to look at that on mine. I think Laura, you could probably look at that on yours, and see where your usage and your production from the solar sort of come out at zero, and then do it at that time. So you would probably, I would suspect that you would do it in probably September. Probably the data would come in September, and you would probably net it out in October, something like that.
so you want to, I want to make sure I understood what you suggested, that you would want to wait to the moment where the
Credit was the highest.
credit was the highest?
Mhm.
Maybe.
I think it's better after the winter time.
Yeah,
After you build the credit in the summer, then you use it in the winter, and then when it's at its potential lowest point.
well, it depends on how you heat your house, doesn't it? We, for our solar system, we run a credit in the winter and we use it all in the summer for air conditioning. Until next winter, because we just put the heat pumps in. So I don't know which will be the higher, which will be the higher usage time yet, the winter or the summer. I suspect the winter. So it depends, I'm thinking every customer is customers are going to differ in terms of what they have in their house for using electricity. When it's going to be highest.
Yeah, maybe it's better in September then.
For now, I
I'm
think,
sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
no, go ahead, Mike.
I mean, I'm thinking that the PV production starts to wane off, into October. So your lowest production months are October, November, December, January, and February, and then March it starts to pick up. April it's chugging along, and May, June are awesome.
I guess I would
mean,
say I don't have
I don't think it
anything.
really matters a whole lot, because it's not a huge amount of money we're talking about
Right,
for a huge
right.
number of
Yeah.
customers. So I would do it maybe at the end of the year.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
maybe based on whatever makes
Do
the
it
most sense
on the
administratively,
January bill, and you see it for the year before.
Okay.
because I'm not sure
mean-
for solar.
Well, that's what we had
customers,
talked
it's a
about, but I
better
just,
time. Yeah.
I just wanted to get your feedback on where you do have solar. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're getting the money back and it's in your bank, and you can, if you have to pay your light bill, then you pay your light bill with it, right?
I mean, you want it to pay your light bill.
Yeah, yeah.
You just don't want a huge balance at the end of the day. And I mean,
Yeah, and we, for the light plant, we don't want to see customers running a balance for, until, for the next 20 years, and then, either they sell their house and that credit goes away. That doesn't seem.
Well, to be clear, I think the previous general manager changed the policy so that you get paid for the electricity that is.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Pending
Yeah,
on, that
yeah.
you haven't been paid for yet when
Right.
you sell your house.
Yeah.
Unless you want to change that again, but I wouldn't
No,
advise it.
no. I think that's a fair policy.
Any further discussion on this topic? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is residential collections.
So I really, this was more for April. I wanted to give people an idea of what we were looking at. So residential collections start in April. We can't shut customers off. Over the
Okay,
winter.
so by collections, you mean collections on overdue bills? That's
Overdue
what you mean.
bills.
Okay.
Correct. So we started out in April with 356 customers on the collections list with about $300,000 in payments overdue. And the customer service reps did a fantastic job getting that number down. By 4/24, when we started collections, we were down to 77 people on that list. And then obviously we did a number of shut-offs, and we went through the cycle. Most people paid. I don't think we have anyone still off. But again, the customer service people do an outstanding job with our collections. So I just wanted to, recognize them and let the board know that this is what we see typically every April.
That really is good to know. Have you seen fluctuations over the last 3 years? So let's say, for example, during COVID or something, was there a larger amount out for collection than previously, or does it vary much?
I think that's pretty standard, but Ellen, can you speak to that?
I think in years past, the number in April was slightly higher. But we've been a little more aggressive in what we're collecting from people. In April, the number's usually higher because some people go through the winter without paying their bill at all, so the number is higher. But in years past, we've been asking for maybe a quarter of the past due, but now we're trying to keep people more on top of it and asking for half of past due in April, and then from there on out until November, we're looking for all of the past due, which kind of keeps the number lower year after year because people aren't, their balances aren't going higher and carrying that balance month after month. So I think the number's now pretty typical. Every month we send out about 300 plus letters for that initial letter. Then we have to send a second notice, and that number goes down. So I think we're pretty aggressive on it, but I think it's a good thing. We kind of look at it like your credit card company, your cell phone company really doesn't let you not pay the bill. So, we want people to pay their bills so we can continue our little business here.
I do really appreciate what a huge task that must be. And I guess I hadn't taken on board that it really does have to happen every year. That really hadn't come to my attention before. Do you have the feeling that people don't pay in the winter because their other utility bills have gone, they're paying for heat, gas or oil, and that they kind of go, I'm going to pay for my gas and oil and then I'll get back to the electricity in the summer? Or do you think that's why people don't pay in the winter?
I think there's various reasons. I think people know that there's that moratorium so that they know that they're not going to be shut off and they can use that money to pay other bills. So, I'm not really sure what the reasoning is, but I do think people know. We get a lot of phone calls in March saying, when's the first shut off? So I think people kind of know this cycle and then it will be coming, that we are going to be looking for money. So.
Well, this tells me that there are hundreds of people in our town who really have to work hard to juggle their bills, and that we need to keep that foremost in our mind when we're talking about our rate changes.
Yeah, and I know that it's come up before, but I think also too, the override was just passed, and we have a lot of people that are concerned about that as well, especially for the people that can't pay this bill. So I think there is quite a bit of, we're known as a wealthy town, but I think there's quite a bit of people out there that are struggling. They don't necessarily meet that level where they're getting assistance, but they are struggling to pay their bills.
Is there anything that we could do to help?
Well, we are considering creating a low income rate.
Yeah.
We don't currently have, and a lot of MLPs do have.
From a customer service perspective, is there anything that we can do to help either you and the customers?
Oh, sure, I mean, we can put them on payment plans, we can put them on, place them on budgets.
Yeah.
We have a list of agencies that are willing to help. So
Yeah.
of course, we give them that list and many times those agencies will help.
Yeah.
So sure, there's resources out there.
Yeah.
So,
One thing I've seen before is the utility will take an average of a 12-month or a 2-year utility bills, and basically you go onto a flat rate, and then every year there's a true up on that, so that a customer knows that at any given time that my bill is $100 or $120 and it's not changing, so they can
Yes.
budget better for that. And maybe it's better to go through a process once a year where there's a true up and you come after that, or it's a credit or it's an adjustment, rather than, maybe in the winter they have a high electric bill because of the high heat cost.
mhm.
And I'm
We
just
do
trying
offer
to
that.
see if we can help in any way to make the process easier.
Mhm. Yes, we do offer budgets. So people are certainly on budgets and they pay the same amount monthly. And then there is that true up month in January. So yes.
Okay.
It sounds like there's a lot of bookkeeping work involved
Well,
on top of the standard collections procedures. So it's a huge task, but I really appreciate the time spent helping our more vulnerable ratepayers meet their obligations. I don't think you get that from National Grid. So, thank you.
absolutely.
Anything else on that? Okay, next item on the agenda is the financials. Tom, you want to show us those? Didn't we look at February already? I thought we looked at February, maybe not.
I can't remember, to be
I
honest.
can't either.
I will, let me just share. February. March. Let me start with March. So our kilowatt hour sold were a little lower. Revenues were higher. Our expenses, again, a little higher. Net income, $25,000 for the month of March. Our net income year to date is $653,000. So we're in really good shape as far as this year goes compared to the last 2 years anyway. If you go back to the February.
Would you attribute the change in our standing year over year to using the power cost adjustment to cover our costs better?
I think that has kept us on the positive side. Yeah.
Because I can't think of anything else that's has changed dramatically.
Am I correct that PCA is still 3.5 cents?
I'm not sure exactly what it is. Joan would have that information. Unfortunately, she's on vacation this week. But I can get that for you.
And we
Let me
still
look
need,
at my bill.
we
It's three and a
still,
half. It's 3.5 cents.
cents. Yeah. I think the last meeting it was stated, as if I recall correctly, it was a penny. And that we still needed it. My question is, if it is 3.5 cents, do we still need it? And if so, how much longer do we need it?
Yeah, I'll have Joan look at that, because our year-to-date net income is higher than it has been. So
Yeah, it looks like our books are in really good shape, and assuming that the cost of gas stays low like it is at the moment, maybe our forward projections for costs of energy in the real-time market may not be as high.
I think with the rate change, we had talked about lowering the PCA back to about a penny. We didn't want to go. Mark had talked about not lowering it too much, because then you would end up going negative. But to get it back in line, I agree.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll have Joan look at that, and when we do the rates, we'll we'll come up with that. At this point, I think we're probably looking at changing the rates as of July 1st and maybe publishing them as of right around June 1st.
The board has given its support to the proposal to raise rates roughly 6% overall with different levels and different customer classes. And so at that point, it should reduce the need for the PCA.
Yeah.
As soon as we've done that, right?
If you look at February, typically we're negative in February because we have a large payment on the Watson plant in Braintree. That payment typically comes in February and August. So, but even this year we were good we were positive for the month for $30,000. So, and again, our sales, our revenue, kilowatt hours sold were somewhat in line.
Okay, we're still looking at March. Are you looking at February?
I'm sorry. I have it on my screen, but
Yeah,
obviously it's not on your screen.
I think maybe you need to unshare and then share again.
You see that now?
Can you zoom in on your spreadsheet a little bit so it becomes a little larger?
Is that better or?
So that's much better. Maybe one more. Perfect.
Yeah, so again, February we were positive net income, where typically we're negative net income in February. And our our kilowatt hours sold were about the same. Our revenue was higher and our expenses were in line. So again, that it's the PCA that's contributing to that. And then again, year to date, we were $627,000 positive for the net income.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll look at the PCA as part of the rate change.
Yeah. Okay, anything further on financials before we move on? Okay, so we're down to our updates. First, the transmission project.
Yeah, transmission line where we continue to move forward on that. We are hoping to file with the siting board in July of this year. We had hoped to file, back in March, but we've had some issues as far as getting some information out of Eversource. They had proposed a GIS switchgear in Weymouth. We asked them to go back and look at open air configuration there because we feel that would be a cheaper option, much cheaper option, would save Hingham ratepayers dollars there. So they've come back, they've looked at it, and they seem to think that the GIS is still the cheaper option there. So we're trying to get a meeting set up with them to discuss that and to understand where their numbers are related to that. But
Tom, do we know the proposed route through Weymouth yet?
so Weymouth is looking for us to go down Broad Street. We had two proposed route. We had the proposed and the alternate, and the feedback we got from the town of Weymouth was to go down Broad Street as our proposal, and the alternate would go down Lake Street.
Yeah.
Either way, it's, I think Lake Street might be a little bit longer. In our opinion, we thought that the construction would probably might have been a little easier that way, but the town would like to see us go down Broad, which is, again, it's shorter for us. So it either way didn't matter that much. Cost wise, they were pretty much the same. It was going to be the same cost, so.
Good.
EV charges, so we went out to bid. We had the walkthrough on the charges I'm sorry, this week. Again, we're putting one level 3 charger at Carlson Field, 2 at Station Street. And as part of this package, we added in a level 2 charger at Town Hall. So we should be getting those bids back in the next couple of weeks on that, and that project to move forward.
Yeah, Tom, it's at Lynchfield.
I'm sorry, Lynchfield, not Carlson Field, right.
So that'd be a 50 kilowatt fast charger at Lynchfield and 2 at Station Street, adjacent to the ones that are currently there.
No, these will be kind of across from the coffee corner,
Okay.
along that edge of the parking lot.
Okay. One observation at Station Street is it doesn't look too tidy in terms of neat and tidy at the moment. There's some vegetation that's growing into one of the parking spots, and there's certainly a fair bit of compostable and unfortunately some heavy litter. I'm not sure whether that's our responsibility or the town's responsibility, but I think it would be good to sharpen that a little.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at it and have someone clean it up.
I feel sure that's the town's responsibility.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
I think so too, but
I'll talk to Randy.
Yeah,
I'm more than
It's-
happy to send someone down there to clean it up, but I don't know how well that would be received by the DPW.
I think the adjacent area could use a little TLC as well. So that's certainly away from the charges, but it's a good point to bring it up because it is something that we're proud of that we have in town.
so
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to ask about the location of that charger actually is, when I was down there for the farmer's market, and I ran into select board member Joe Fisher, and he was pointing out where they were going to be. And they were right behind in a place where if the farmer's market is there, you can't get to them. And I said, this is really not a good plan as long as the farmer's market is located in this place in this way. Because, if I'm an electric car owner and I come in because my app has told me there's an available charger down here, and I show up even once and it's not available, I'm never coming back, because now that location is marked in my head as unreliable, not necessary. I have to point myself to some other location. And I don't know if that's been resolved. Is it still in a place where it's going to be covered up by the farmer's market when the farmer's market is in?
I don't know, Brianna, do you know? Unfortunately, I'm not sure where the farmer's market is down there.
Well, it's in the court. It's
Yeah.
directly across the street from the coffee corner.
It's still
Oh,
in
is
that
it?
spot. Yeah,
Could we move it to a different pole?
Well,
Really, they should move the farmer's market. I mean, it's
yeah,
only,
the
it's their,
reason
once a month.
we chose that location was, for the facilities. It was, to put the charges there would cost far less than having to trench someplace else through the parking lot or something.
Right. And you want it at the center of the downtown so people have a reason or something to do while their car is charging for half an hour or an hour.
Yeah. I wonder, could we put those as unavailable when the farmer's market is open?
You can, but
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that's sometimes unavailable. I'm never
Yeah.
going to go there again,
Yeah.
So
What
I
happened
don't
to
know.
the farmer's market being at the bathing beach?
Well, they get better results being where they moved to the Station Street location when they were building the concession stand at the beach. I don't know, maybe they'll move back. I don't know. Perhaps perhaps a conversation could be open with the farmer's market.
I recently reached out to them to do some promotional stuff at the farmer's market anyways, so I will reach back out and try to touch base on just their long-term location and talk about the EV chargers.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to continue to be at Station Street is a way that they can locate themselves a little further up in the parking lot. And have parking be at the bottom of the lot there so that people can get at those chargers. That would be a question. If
Yeah.
they're planning on staying there.
Yeah. See, it seems there needs to be an access line for people to come in and out of the charges. And eventually people at the farmer's market are going to want to be able to charge there too.
Well, that means that the people who are in the farmer's market will get there before the customers and get the charger, I suspect. But they're probably the people coming from far away, so.
Yeah, but the software works really well to move people on and have wait lists. And it's working pretty well.
Okay, great. So on to our personal solar array project at the light plant.
So we're meeting every other week on the project. They're hoping to break ground somewhere the end of July, early August, where they feel they'll have the materials in. So
Remind me how large the project is again. I keep forgetting.
Steve, 200.
225 kW.
Okay,
So altogether, we'll have like with the existing system, it's like about 270.
mhm. Okay.
Steve, I'm just curious, what sort of cost per watt are we seeing for a commercial install now?
This one was a little bit high because of the canopy. I think it was like $4. Was it $4.25?
I think it was 4. I want to say 4.25. Yeah, for this.
It was the price of the steel that kind of drove it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's if you had a roof, it would be a lot less.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Typically in the municipal world, it's higher anyway because we have to pay the prevailing wage. So
Mhm. Yeah.
So that
Okay.
project's moving along. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully they'll be able to get the panels and start that in July, and we'll have that project will be done by the end of the year. Municipal solar,
Oh, would you like me to report?
sure.
No, okay. So the municipal solar committee has been meeting every other week and consists of Tom and Brianna and Steve and me and our 2 volunteers, Will Cowan and Ben Lee. And the whole structure of the project really depends on the decision that we make around having an opt-out rate versus having a fund, voluntary donations to a fund, because the amount of funds that will be available will be very different in those 2 cases. We'll still have the recs coming in, and that's available. So I had a discussion with Will yesterday about this, and I'll bring this to the committee next time I see them. But one of the things the town, when we've been meeting with them, is most interested in is the light plant providing engineering assistance to do the engineering studies, which would lower the cost to the town. And then so if the town was the one who would buy the, go to town meeting for bonding to build the units, if the light plant were to contribute the cost of the engineering studies, that would lower the cost to the town. They're very interested in that. And the reason, so this has been an issue from the beginning, once again, from our attorney, who didn't feel that we could contribute the cost of engineering studies to the town, because if we did it for one ratepayer, we would have to do it for any ratepayer who came to us and said, would you please do an engineering study for my solar array? And I have come to a different, I'll just float it for you, and I'm gonna write it up, but I feel like we're thinking about this, the whole question of how we support distributed energy resources in town in the wrong way. We are thinking of the people who are installing these things as ratepayers, whereas in their capacity as owners of distributed energy resources, they are generators. They're not ratepayers.
Yeah.
And we do not, we go out and buy all kinds of generation from all kinds of different places. We have the right to buy any generation we want, turn down any generation that we want. We have the right to decide what kind of generation we want to buy and go look for that and support that. We have the right to invest in generation. So I'm feeling that that is how we should be looking at this. If the light plant wants to develop distributed energy resources in town, I think that the light plant has the ability, and Tom has the power as the general manager to sign contracts with anybody, any contract that he feels is in the best interest of the light plant. And if that includes providing an energy, an engineering study, then that, to me, that's legal. We have very broad powers for acquiring generation. So I'm gonna try to codify this a little bit because I'm not sure anybody has really thought of it this way. But to me, it makes sense that we don't have, we don't have to provide for one generator the same thing, that the same deal that we give some other generator. We don't have any deals that are the same as a deal with another generator. And I feel like if we want to support distributed energy generation in town, we can develop a policy that says we're interested in projects that have these characteristics. And if you have such a project, the light plant will consider, but not guarantee, supporting that project with an engineering study. And when you think about it, that is the same as offering that rebate to the residential customer for their roof. It's not, we're not offering it to them as a ratepayer, we're offering it to them as a generator. And I think that's going to get us away from, looking at it that way was going to get us away from some of the issues that have come up around treating all ratepayers the same. I think the answer is, in this context, we're not dealing with ratepayers. So that's going to change how we're looking at it. And so those are the two factors that are changing what we're looking at. The anticipation that if we don't do an opt-out rate, there will be less money coming into the fund, and we will be less likely to be able to actually build arrays with it because there isn't enough money. But we would be able to make a meaningful contribution by doing engineering studies for projects around town. Thing one. And thing two is, I think that there is a way to explain a legal basis for doing engineering studies for the town. So those are the two big changes right now. We're going to continue talking about that. The goal right now is to come up with 3 projects. Brianna's done a wonderful job putting together a model where we plug in all the data on various town buildings and come up with a payback period for each of those projects. So my goal is, the next thing to do is pick 3 projects and then go to the town and propose to them that they go to town meeting to fund the construction of these projects with a bond next year, and that the light plant would make a contribution of doing engineering studies for these projects, and that so they would be joint projects in that way. So that's where we're headed right now. If anybody has any input on that, we'd love to hear it.
Do we know which 3 projects?
Not yet. I will tell you, I'm extremely keen on doing the maintenance building at the South Shore Country Club, because they are extremely keen on having it.
Yes.
And that maintenance facility is a small array. So it's a good place for us to kind of cut our teeth and, figure out how this model is going to work in relations with the town. And they will use every electron, every photon that comes into that.
Yeah.
It will never get out of there. They will use every bit of it. And that will feel really good to the country club committee. And I think it will be a nice visible thing for people in the town to be able to see. And then the other,
they could run a credit there.
Okay, well,
I think, right, Steve?
they're a generator. We'll pay them.
Okay.
That's how I'm looking at it.
Yes, that's where the troop will come into play.
Yep. They'll be happy to get those checks, I think.
They could install some more heat pumps, use up that credit.
Well, and I'll just tell you that they are, their roof is on the, I mean, the big roof, the country club roof is on their maintenance list for in the next year or two. So that isn't, we should look, this will be a great opportunity to work with the country club committee, get that going, figure out how it works, and possibly look at a bigger project next year or the year after. And then the other things on the list that we're thinking about is the middle school roof. The gym roof was built solar ready 10 years ago. If we want to put solar on it, we should do it now, because otherwise it's going to be too late. And then some possible project at the high school, which we haven't yet nailed down. And is there anything else, Brianna or Tom, that we were considering?
We had a meeting yesterday with Select Solar.
Mhm.
And the school department was at the meeting. And I forget the woman's name. I think she took over for Doug Foley.
Katie Hardigan.
They don't believe that roof is actually solar ready, because when they talk about solar ready, the gentleman from Select Solar told us that means that they've put electrical infrastructure and switchgear in to the building so that when you do the solar, it's an easy plop down and connect. She does not believe that building has that switchgear or anything like that.
I guess what we need is a definition of solar ready.
Right. Right.
Which is really worth looking into right away, because both the new Foster School building, whatever its name will be, and the public safety facility are spec to be built solar ready. So what does that mean? We should probably.
So any new building being built now, any of our municipal building being built now has to be solar ready, which means that it has to have that switch gear and equipment built in.
Oh,
But
okay.
back when
Taken care
the
of.
school was built, that definition was probably different.
So I guess what's really going on is all these projects are moving around with various aspects that either recommend them or don't recommend them. And my goal is the next thing is to pick 3 projects and go with them, because we need to get started on it if we want to have something ready for town meeting next year.
So am I understanding this correct? The middle school gym is questionably not solar ready?
Structurally, it might be okay.
Structurally it is, but in
It might
terms of
not
the
have
electrical,
or electrically, it might not be.
okay. Okay. As long as it's structurally ready.
They have to make sure of it, because back in 2011, when they designed the school, even our building was close to being that cutoff where the architects follow the ASTM code, and I forgot which code it is, but for structural readiness. So
Yeah, because for me that's a big no. If we were told by the architects when we built a school that a part of that building was solar ready and it's not structurally sound without reinforcements, then that's a big red flag.
I think what I'm hearing is they think it is, that the definition of solar ready then
It's just
structurally is just structural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
definition has changed. I think that's what I hear.
Yeah,
I'm hearing.
I think it's when that definition changed to actually allow for the electrical conduits and the switchgear, etc.
With respect to
Where would Tyler, where would PRS's outdoor basketball court fall under this? Because to me, that's as solar ready as you could be, because those I-beams are as strong as you like, and there's a transformer right there. There's a pole right there. Every day I drive past.
You've
sunny
mentioned that,
roof.
and I have mentioned it to
And-
the committee.
Yes.
I think the tendency has been to view it as part of a larger Plymouth River project. So, and not thinking of it in isolation, but I don't know, Brianna, maybe we should. What do you think?
I can run just that analysis. When we did Plymouth River, the payback I think was coming out the best when we included the rooftop the shed as well as the parking lot that's there. But we can cut it back and play with the numbers to see. So just the basketball court, you said?
Yeah, the outdoor basketball court that's
shed.
actually covered. You call it a shed, okay. I
Okay.
mean, and there's the south facing part of the gym, which is a smaller area. But that's certainly very viable as well.
So the payback no doubt came out the best because Plymouth River is heated electrically and the bills are through the roof. So
I'm hearing that the heat is very poor there.
yeah, so
That's the
that to
feedback I'm
to
getting.
me, that is the dream is a large project that includes switching them over to heat pumps
Pumps, yeah.
and solar and battery. That would be, but we're not ready for a project of that magnitude yet, but that's my dream. I keep bringing that up and people keep saying, we can't do that yet.
Yes,
That's
we
my
can.
Tyler, you've been trying to say something.
There's a lot of support between the PTO there and the school committee and the
And
custodians.
it's the most expensive building to heat, so it should be near the top of the list.
And they've
somehow,
just
yeah.
replaced the windows, which has made a huge difference. But I mean, I talked to the teachers and they're cold.
Yeah.
They're cold at this time of the year. There's absolutely no reason for that. So
We're working on it.
Yep. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, Tyler, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I know that there's a big project over at the high school to redo the athletic facilities, and that the Hingham Sports Partnership has been fundraising for years. That might be something that we want to make sure is solar ready, and might make sense to include that as part of the project.
I think it's in there, right, Brianna? They have been in touch with us.
That specific building is not in there right now, but I'm gonna add that. And the gentleman from the Hingham Sports Group that's putting that
Partnership,
together.
yeah.
The Hingham Sports Partnership, he did come to the light plant and talk with me about the building. And they are very interested in seeing solar get put on it. So I believe it's being built solar ready, but I think that may have been referring to just structural because of the orientation of the roof and the type of roofing. But I don't think they're making a financial investment right now to do electrical solar ready prep work, which is what Alan from Select had talked to us about. He said, did they make an investment to put in $250,000 worth of switchgear and electrical infrastructure? He said, solar ready, you'll go into the electrical room and see a solar PV system label. And if you don't see that, then it's not solar ready. So I think we are talking about structural solar ready roofs and not that the electrical stuff would be included in the project.
But Tom, did you just mention that
yeah.
new municipal buildings must meet a
I
different
thought he
solar
told
ready?
us that any new building has to be solar ready, which means that it has to have the switchgear. But the building we're talking about at the sports field is pretty small, right? It's
tiny.
yeah. So that building may not qualify,
It's a residential size.
yeah, that
building.
might not it might not meet the state standards for a solar ready building,
Another issue we've run into with smaller systems is that the town is required to pay prevailing wage on those projects. And so it's going to drive up the cost a lot so if the system is smaller, then it's going to be facing more of those larger costs with less, I guess, opportunity to recoup them. So that's something why we're kind of veering away from looking at just smaller buildings and trying to find bigger opportunities.
Could we combine some of those smaller projects into a single project and just have one EPC contractor do a bunch of them all together?
That's something that the town of Cohasset had done. They combined their 3 schools, Osgood, Deer Hill, and the high school, middle school, into one project. And that's how they drove down the cost for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if the schools will be ready to move forward at the same time. If we could find several sites that could move forward at the same time, then that could be an opportunity.
Finding those sites tends to do with the age of the roof. And right now we are still waiting for data on the roofs, the municipal roofs.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Alan from Select Energy talked to us about was there is a bill making its way through the legislature right now that would, I think he said would include $100 million to replace roofs on buildings where solar would be installed,
Municipal buildings?
municipal buildings. And that the program would be would take build projects that are shovel ready, so it wouldn't be based on income, need or diversity. It would be projects they would look at projects that are shovel ready. And I think
Shovel ready means a really old roof? I mean, what does
that-
shovel ready mean in this case?
I guess it would be that you're ready to do the roof, like you've gone out and you've looked at it, got prices, you've done your homework basically. And his feeling was that we should be, and the woman from the schools has a lot of this information already, but felt that you should have that information readily available, and the more information you had, the more homework you did would give you a better shot of getting some of these dollars to replace roofs. So
Of course,
He
they're
also
just
said-
putative dollars at the moment, right? I mean, they're not, this is
right,
just a
but
bill.
this gentleman thinks that it's whatever information he has, he believes it'll happen. But again, $100 million isn't a lot of money.
Not when you're looking at roofs.
Yeah,
And
that are
he said
multiple.
that the program is intended to cover 100% of the roof cost. And it's broken out into two components. So it covers the engineering studies and design of a solar system, as well as the installation of that system. And I guess right now it's structured to be 100%. It's still in committee is what we had heard. So I think it could change by the time it gets out of committee. He thinks it's going to change for the better, maybe increasing from 100 million to 200 million. But it hasn't been fully released yet, is my understanding. But it is coming, and he told us to gather as much data as possible and prepare for probably October as a release time.
Wow,
Wow.
great.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
supposed to be on the governor's desk in August. Applications can open up in October, and then we'll probably see grant awards in February.
That's hard to believe of a bill that's still in committee, but if it has somebody really powerful behind it, maybe so.
Like the governor?
Yeah, he might just want our business, but something to keep on the radar.
Okay. Okay, great. So that's where we are with municipal solar. Any other questions or comments on that before we talk about the landfill solar project? Speaking of municipal solar.
Yes, the landfill solar, we're negotiating with Industria right now. They gave us a proposal. We sent it to Deirdre to take a look at. She has some changes that she's looking for, so that'll go back to them this week. And the changes are minor, so we should be able to get something with them in the next week or two, and then we'll start the process to do the RFP for that.
Mhm. Okay,
When do you foresee that would be shovel ready, Tom?
I'd love to say that we'd see it this year, but I would hope this year, but I would say most likely next
When
year.
the ground thaws out next year.
Yeah.
We're making great headway.
That's good to
are
hear.
you
Steve.
is that a joke or do you
No,
mean it?
I
Are you
think
feeling
making
good about it?
headway, but it just, the way
Okay.
things work, it just,
Because that's not
grinds.
something we've been able to say about this project for the last 7 years. So if you're feeling good
I
about
feel-
it now, it's true.
I feel 100 times better.
Okay, good. Great. Okay,
On the topic of solar, we've been informed that our friends at Linden Ponds are interested in doing a commercial install at their water treatment plant. I just wanted to get that on our radar screens officially.
I'm
I
aware of
think-
that.
And I think that Brianna, they are the people in the community who've asked for that have been tasked with the administration to come up with the model, the financial model. And fortunately, we have one. So I think that Brianna is going to help them use our model to come up with some data. Do
Yeah.
I have that right, Brianna?
Yes, Paul actually sent me an email, and I'm gonna get back to him today. And I'm just gonna talk to Tom before I send anything over to make sure that we don't create any liability issues with HMLP. But hopefully we can send them some sort of template that they can use and plug in information and play around with. And again, I mean, as long as they understand that it's all just an estimate and they shouldn't take anything as fact moving forward, I don't see an issue with it, but I'll talk to Tom about it before we share out the calculator.
Yeah, that's great. They just need a place to get started somehow, something they can take and improve.
Yeah, and I think that's the intention of the calculator. Sorry, Michael.
So another thought that I had on this, I know we talked about possibly looking to another strategic place in town to have an additional battery, a larger battery. And I'm wondering whether or not a working partnership with our friends at Linden Ponds might be a possibility, to site a battery alongside adjacent to their water treatment plant. I think when we start looking at a financial model to sell this to their decision makers, the amount of incentive is going to be important. So maybe this could be a win-win situation where HMLP could end up with some interest in a larger battery, and they could have a solar system that would be part of that battery. And we could certainly look to charge the battery from the grid during the night when costs are less per kilowatt hour, and then using that for peak shaving and other emergency type scenarios.
That is something we should definitely think about. And another such option that I often think about is putting it next to the town's water treatment plant. That would be another logical location. So a joint project with the town to do something like that. When we're thinking about battery locations, I know that Steve, you've looked at the town and the grid and asked yourself, what's the best geographical location for
Right, so
batteries? You have
Tom,
to take
so
that into
Tom,
consideration too.
so Tom and I took a ride up to the water treatment plant. I met with Russ, and there's a spot just before their gate. It's an open flat land that it's owned by the town. It could house easily 2 megawatts of battery storage and possibly small little solar. So we're looking at that little. It's a great spot, and it's out of the way of people's view and whatnot. The only thing with the line going down to the water treatment plant, years ago, we didn't own that line. It was some quirky deal they had when they built Linden Ponds, and I want to say in 2014, we finally acquired that line through an easement. And there's some language in there. We have to go back and look again.
Are you talking about the underground line from the substation to Linden Ponds?
No. There's an overhead line.
Okay.
It goes off of Whiting Street. We have an easement just to maintain that line. So we have to look at the
Okay.
the structure of that easement that was done way back.
Okay, well, all good ideas to consider. Let's do that. Last item on the update is capital projects, which I'm glad to see on the updates. I'd love to stay after those on a regular basis. And then I just want to say after that, we should take a minute to talk about meetings and agendas going forward.
Yeah.
So capital projects.
So one capital project that was on the plan this year that will not be done is the transmission line. And that was a large capital project that we're going to have to defer that to next year. We can't get the the insulators unavailable. So
The
it's gonna
ones we
be a-
have to replace.
right. So
Okay.
that's, those insulators are about a year out, so we probably won't see them until sometime in the spring next year. And then it'll be a matter of coordinating the outages on that line to get that work done, so.
Does
So do you
that make
imagine,
us-
oh, sorry.
Sorry, does
Go
that
ahead.
make us vulnerable over the winter?
Well, we had, the reason we were gonna redo those insulators is that they have cracking in them,
Right,
and we did have one fail, so we do have a couple here that if we did have another failure that we could replace. but,
okay.
We don't have enough to, you know,
So it's not emergency maintenance, it's really
it's not
preventative
emergency maintenance,
maintenance.
something, yeah, it needs to be done, needs to be prioritized, but unfortunately that you can't get, like everything else, material is a problem.
Understood.
Yeah.
So would you replace that project with another project to be done this year, or would you simply postpone it? Would are there funds that that we've allocated for that we'll just move to next year?
Yeah, we'll move those funds to next year.
Okay.
Just, there's nothing we can, where that was gonna be done by contractors, outside contractors. There's no way that we can replace it.
Mhm. Okay,
Right now, we're working on Hershey Street. We're gonna reconduct a Hershey Street, which is another large project on the capital plan. And we've done some of the smaller reconductoring jobs, and some are in progress, so we're doing pretty good on the capital plan right now as it stands.
does reconductoring include replacing transformers?
Not necessarily.
Do you, as you go along, do you think, okay, this particular one is serving, would you ever look at the way it's laid out now and say, okay, going forward, this has really got to be better, or do you just wait? Is that a whole other process of looking at the transformers?
Well, Steve looks at the loading on the transformers. So if we need to, add a transformer or increase the size of a transformer, that's done on a normal basis. The reconductoring is really, that's outside of that. I mean, if we come across a can that's bad or, needs to be replaced, we'll certainly replace it, but it doesn't mean we're going to be replacing all of our transformers. And to be honest with you, the transformers, not only are they expensive, but the lead time on
They're
transformers.
not available either, right?
Yeah, we used to get transformers, order them today, you see them in 8 weeks. Now they're 25, 32 weeks. One for the Foster School is 49 weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we have to be very careful. So typically what we do is we take one down, install another one, we take the other one, we take down, put it back into inventory, clean it up and get ready for its next use.
I've seen some utilities, are they seal coating their transformers, or they're doing something to them in place to extend the life, was my understanding. Have you heard of that, Steve?
No, so most utilities standardize on their sizing of transformers. So like Eversource, National Grid, the only thing they really put up is one standard size, where we kind of started eliminating the smaller transformers and stick to 3, and eventually we'll get to 2 down the road. The typical failure of a transformer is either an overload or the oil itself gets so contaminated with poor dielectric, it'll just short itself out. But a lot of our transformers are non-PCBs, and a lot of it up since the 80s, and they're still, tell you the truth, the ones from the 80s are the best ones. They hold very well.
Do we have issues with PCBs?
So ever since the 50s, and so none of our transformers are in the 70 eras, but the previous purchasing manager, who was here 44 years, never ordered any PCB transformers. We actually had none in the system, so which is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so if that's it on capital plans, then let's just take a look going ahead. When will utility financial services be back?
So we owe them, Samir is working to get them some information or data to do the study on the time of use. So I would imagine he would have that information hopefully by the end of this week, if not early next week. And then we'll get it over to utility financial services. I'll have to check with them to see how long they need to put that together, but my sense is that they won't be ready by the June, that would be June 13th, right?
June 13th would be the standard, okay.
But we will have the audit ready for June 13th meeting, so.
Okay. Audit. So one topic that Tyler and I would like to put on the agenda is we'd like to talk about how, or I'd like to learn about and how the light plant operates on the spot market. How do we make our purchases? How do we participate in the forward capacity market? I understand what these markets are, but I don't understand how we, as a small utility, interact with them. And Tyler had some questions in that area as well. And we had thought maybe we could have one discussion about that as our board, and then possibly invite E&E to come in, because I know they're in the middle of all that, and go over that with us. Did I encapsulate that right, Tyler, what we're looking to talk about?
Yeah, and in general, just see how well we're doing with on an hourly basis, how much we're short or long into the market, whether it's energy or capacity or ancillaries, and to see if there's anything better we can do to be better balanced and better manage our exposure.
Mhm.
So you don't want any for that first meeting, or?
Tyler, you were thinking it made
I
more
would
sense
think
to
you
have,
do.
to just talk amongst ourselves first
Okay,
before inviting E&E. Do you still feel that way?
I'm happy to take Tom's recommendation on that.
yeah, I think, unless we want to come up with a list of questions for E&E prior to having them come on. Typically, we have E&E come on anyway, once a year, just to give us kind of an update. We've done that in October in past years, but there's no reason we couldn't have them put together a presentation and include whatever questions we have regarding the spot market in that presentation. So the only
We
thing
could potentially have them come more than once a year if we really wanted.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yep. Yeah, we have. They happen.
Yeah, I sort of feel like those are two different discussions. One is about our, the 80% of our power supply that we contract for, and the other one is about the other 20%, and the other 20% is what I don't know anything about.
Yeah. Would it be possible to have a summary of what that 20% consists of? Sort of breakdown on a monthly basis. How many megawatt hours are we talking about? Are we really just looking at summer peaks and winter peaks, or is this balanced over the peak hours of the day in the morning and in the evening peak?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to
exposure is what I want to understand.
And that's one of the things that I'm concerned about, because we talk about this 75 or 80% number, but at 3 p.m. in July, we may actually be going to the spot market for 50% of our needs. Right. It's the difference between our contracted supply, our actual load, and our and what we need, what we're long or short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it would be ideal to have Ken Stampler and maybe Gil Mayette from E&E on the call. And I'll ask them to put together a presentation on exactly what we, what we are looking for in the spot market and the, how we actually manage that.
Also, the
Yeah.
capacity market, whole other piece of it. So it's 4 weeks to June 13th, which would be our next standard meeting. And the auditors are gonna come in, and last year, because I had so many questions, it took the whole meeting to go over the audit. And
Yeah.
so I hope I won't.
Typically
I hope
in
I
the
won't have
past,
any questions.
that's been pretty much the only thing we've covered in the,
Yeah. So how would people feel about having a meeting in 2 weeks if E&E can come then and talk to us about these issues? That would be the 30th, day after Memorial Day.
That, I'm on shift that
Okay.
Tuesday in the morning,
All
so
right.
that's tough for me.
Okay,
I could do the week before or the week after.
how about you, Tyler?
Sorry, which date?
So
Okay,
we're,
look at-
so not the 30th because Mike is working that day. So probably they wouldn't be ready to just come see us next week, the 23rd. So maybe have a meeting on the 6th with E&E and then on the 13th with the auditors.
Could we try for next week?
I would think that that would probably be a little tight for E&E to get the.
I could potentially make the 6th work.
Mike?
Yeah, that
Yes.
can, I think that works.
Okay. Okay, so we will plan a meeting with E&E on the 6th and a meeting with the auditors on the 13th. And Bob's your uncle, as they say in English.
One question I had was, when do our nuclear contracts expire? How much long? Because a large part of our portfolio comes from those 2 nuclear plants. When do those disappear, so to speak?
Yeah, I'd have to look at that, but I think that's out till 2040.
They're all
believe.
pretty long.
Yeah.
So that would be the 80% discussion that we usually have in October, but I have some information on that, Mike, I can send you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm aware for the Hingham Net Zero meeting on Wednesday, the general meeting.
Yeah, just if anybody's interested, Hingham Net Zero is having a talk on new nuclear and its potential for contributing to carbon-free energy. If anybody's interested, I can send you the link to that on Wednesday.
On the small modular nuclear.
Yeah, small modular nuclear tomorrow night. I'm sorry, Tyler, if you were going to say something.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've got to jump in a couple minutes.
I think we're done.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved and
Okay,
seconded.
Here, move in a second. All in favor, Mike,
Aye.
Tyler,
Aye.
Laura, aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.